And we are recording. So, thank you so much for joining us, Jeremy.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we're just going to start out with a few introductions. I'm Trillia Hargrove. I'm a member of the BSU, and I'm going to be co-facilitating with, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Kiera Wilson, and I am the Vice President of the BSU at City College.
And if you'd like to introduce
Excellent.
yourself.
And then do I introduce myself?
Yeah.
Okay. And my name is Geramye Teeter, candidate for San Francisco Community College Board in this November's election.
Wonderful. So I'm just going to go in with some context. Hopefully everybody can hear me because my internet connection is a little weird. But we have context of the Black Student Union is advocating for structural change and sustainability of our programs. We cannot continue to be silenced and pushed to the margins, which has historically happened to Black students. We no longer wait for conversation, but we want action in regards to the rhetoric that students are first, which we have heard from a lot of the board. But again, we have yet to see that always play out. So that's why we're having these conversations for both accountability and also seeing where we can go from here, you know, and also to give our students, primarily Black students, but really everybody, a kind of glimpse into a conversation with the candidates and how they can make the best decision for themselves. Because as we said in like some of our posts, we want your vote, your voice really matters, and it's bring it to the table, you know? So, if you want to do a more full if I want to just set out some ground rules or groundwork. So hopefully we can keep this into an hour. We're going to have a series of 10 questions that Kiera and I are going to alternate with, and try to keep it around 5 minutes, but we will let you have an introduction. So 10, 15 minutes, however you feel, and we'll give you the first question if you want to incorporate that into your introduction. So what is something that you believed earlier in your career but think differently now? And we gave this to you as a prep.
Yes, you did. All right. Well, thank you both so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here and talk with you. I get really nervous, so this is like a little bit more easy with just 2 folks instead of 70. So again, my name is Geramye Teeter, candidate for San Francisco Community College Board, and really excited to be out running for this position, meeting voters and constituents, and most importantly, students who are expressing their wants and needs and what they need, hearing what the needs are and hearing what the gaps and what's not being delivered to students from the institution. A little bit about myself. I am a Bayview resident here in San Francisco, and my story is, I would say, unique. You know, I grew up with my grandmother, didn't have my dad around, barely had my mother around. So education was an opportunity for me to kind of see different ways of life and just get a different perspective for myself. With that being said, I've definitely felt counted out as not only a Black man, but also a queer person. And so I believe that tuition-free education provides CCSF students a real opportunity to just make a real difference in their lives. So I'm really advocating for tuition-free education. Not only that, but also just finding permanent funding in perpetuity. So it's not on a per year, per decade basis. It's in perpetuity. So definitely something I'm looking to do and advocating for. A bit about my background in terms of profession. The climate crisis is really my call to action. I was able to early in my career get on with the solar energy company and work with them and learn about renewable energy and how resources are to get people solar systems and just try to make a difference in the climate, try to make an impact on the climate. So one of the big things I'm really pushing for is utilizing the $845 million bond measure that will that's been authorized, sorry, background noise, that's been authorized by San Francisco voters who are prioritizing education. So making sure that, given my background in sustainability, that we're able to have a lot of oversight over that money, and that we're really thinking about the future, thinking about how operational efficiencies will help kind of figure in ways in which to help decrease the budget deficit. I'm not saying building green is going to solve the budget deficit, but it does have an impact on it. So just a little bit about that. One of the big things from that is I'm just really going, my big pillar on the board, if elected, would be a carbon neutrality plan, which would be looking to have zero emissions, carbon emissions by 2030 from all collective CCSF campuses. And then again, you talked about hearing the students first from the board and from trustees, and not really seeing that come to fruition. So one of the big things I'm looking to do is, if elected on the board, is just listen, meet with groups like BSU, meet with CCSF Collective, all the different student groups, and not wait for them to come to the board with priorities. Go to them, go to their meetings, understand what their needs are, and just really listen, because I think that that's often missed. Like, people come in and like, I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z, but did we listen to you and understand what you need as a student? So that's gonna be priority number one. And then also getting a chancellor on board who is really committed to the cause, and the cause meaning tuition-free education, making sure that courses are scheduled for so students can complete their degree programs, making sure that faculty have the resources to teach and assess their students. So just making sure that the new chancellor is going to have a financial vision, and that's going to come with sustained accreditation. And the last thing that, to incorporate your question, one of the things that I thought early in my career is that that a company that you go and work for is going to, have your back. They're going to go the extra mile for you. So early in my career, I had the opportunity to move to New York City with my company, and I took that opportunity. And it coincided with the company going public, and they kind of canceled the position or the promotion that I was going to get, and there wasn't a lot of communication with me. So I'm in New York, and I have my job, but I didn't get the promotion and the salary increase that I need to live in that city. So I ended up coming back here and having to basically start over, find a new apartment, all that kind of stuff. And so one of the things that I thought early in my career is that the company you go and work for is going to, really go the extra mile for you and have your back and do that for you. And what I've learned is that you really have to advocate for yourself. So whenever I'm in a company, I know that I have to advocate to take paid time off. I have to advocate to, take medical appointments and, what have you. So I think that that's one of the things that I've learned from the beginning until now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, Jeremy, do you have any background in educational equality?
I
Equity.
don't have any, I'm sorry?
Educational equity.
Equity. I would say not anything on paper. I haven't taken any taken a degree program or done necessarily kind of the work when it comes to that. So I can't say that I have any credentials. But in terms of kind of volunteerism, being a big brother in the community, having a little brother, volunteering at 826 Valencia Street and kind of helping after school tutoring. So when it comes to just kind of being in the community and seeing how your presence as a professional person has an impact on students is how I would characterize my background in that.
Okay.
So what did you do at 826 Valencia? Because I'm very familiar with that organization.
Yes, so just dropping in and just doing after school tutoring, sitting at the little tables and just kind of being there for when the students come in with math or science, and just kind of what they're doing is that they're trying to integrating creative writing into the curriculum and making sure students can articulate, writing skills and things like that. So just kind of just being there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great, I think that qualifies as a background in equity, because, you're seeing firsthand that these kids need help, and you're being there, like the extra mile is what I would kind of define for equity. But thank you for that answer.
Thank
So
you.
for the oh okay, so for the next question, actually, do you want to do the odds, Kier, or do you want me to do the odds?
I'll do the odds.
Okay, sorry about that.
It's okay. What is your strategy to rectify the harm in education in regards to Black students, such as underrepresentation, bad policy, and underfunded programs?
Yes. So I am a big proponent of reparations on a very local level. So, you know, uh, understanding that municipalities and state governments don't necessarily have the funds to divvy out economic payment to folks identifying as African American Black. But what does the policy look like? What does it look like to like go to our elected leaders and say, hey, you know, we understand that there may not be enough economic funds to actually see a payment to folks, to Black people, Black students, but what can we do in terms of policy? What can we do in terms of, I believe, is it Proposition 209, the Affirmative Action prop? So just seeing that policy is evolved to really account for the economic disparities that Black students are facing when they get to institutions, and just trying to just advocate and get in front of elected leaders and say, hey, you know, we understand that maybe there's not economic funds to be paid out to Black students, but what can we do in terms of a policy level to get students what they need, whether it be books, tuition reimbursement, all these kinds of things, because that's really important. And I think that's a actionable incremental policy that can lead somewhere.
Wonderful, thank you. So for the next question, are you familiar with or aware of the Affirmative Action Taskforce and their mission to instate a full-time faculty member for a Black full-time faculty member for the African American Studies Department?
Yes, I don't know a lot of details about the group, but I am aware, based on the correspondence I've had with CCSF Collective.
Mm-hmm.
And so yes, I'm aware that there's a group advocating for a full-time Black faculty to head that department.
Yeah. Okay. Wonderful. Kier?
Have you taken any classes in African American studies before?
Yes, actually, before we started the recording, I was telling Trulia that I've taken, I don't know the specific name of the course. I would need to go back and look at my CCS transcript, but I took a class, LGBTQ class, focused on the African American experience as it relates to LGBTQ, learning about Barrett Thurston. I didn't really know who he was, and his impact on the civil rights movement. So understanding that, you know, me as a queer Black man, I didn't even know about queer civil rights leaders, who kind of paved the way. So learned a lot. And I'm getting kind of goosebumps talking about it. So yeah, I have, and it was at CCSF, and was a very impactful course.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, because a lot of queer, I mean, of course, Black activists were treated awfully, but you have to imagine being gay or queer on top of it. It's like you want to be accepted by your people, by your race, but they won't, well, a lot of them won't necessarily accept you because of your sexual orientation. When we're all fighting for the same thing, we all look the same.
Exactly. And I was telling
The intersectional
intersectional. And I was
experience.
telling Trulia that I was trying to describe how what we learned in the class is that, with the Black civil rights movement, they had to be laser focused on that cause. So they didn't have the opportunity to incorporate, you know, women. They didn't have the opportunity to incorporate queer folks. So so exactly to your point here.
Yeah. So for the next question, Can you identify funds in the, Can you identify funds in the school budget meant for Black students? If so, tell us the type of fund and how to access it. And this could be an allocation of fund in the budget that is specific for Black students, or it could even be a scholarship, because these are great things too, especially if there's a scholarship that you know about, that you've heard about, that you're inspired by, and that is something that we can tell to our students, share the knowledge.
So help me understand. When I look at the budget, it's convoluted, of course. Is your question in regards to, is there existing money, or is there money that can kind of be reallocated?
Well, I think that kind of goes into a future question, but is there an existing allocation of funds in the budget, or is there scholarships that are out there as well?
So from what I can discern from the budget, I wasn't able to discern like a specific line item that was attributed to, that I could see that was for the African American Studies program, or space for the Black Student Union and things like that. So from what I read in the budget, I did not see that. When I looked at the CCSF Foundation's website, I could see that they had some robust opportunities for scholarship programs for African American students. So that was one of the places that I saw that they were the institution was doing a good job in terms of philanthropy and then getting that money back to students.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. And I think like with the scholarship, sometimes it does feel like there is a lack of visibility, but it's good that you thought that that they are doing stuff there. That's why it's always important to, again, share the knowledge. If there's something that you know about, then definitely let us know, because then we can distribute it.
I'm with you.
Yeah, we haven't seen the budget, but we have been told by faculty at City College that there are allocations for Black students, but the money goes to the Black programs, but a lot of it is being pulled to other directions. I mean, I haven't seen it personally, but people have told us in the past, you guys do have money set off to the side to help you out. You guys do have money for resources and money for new supplies, but they're using the money for something else. Somebody else up above us, above our pay grade, of course, is allocating the money and taking it to somewhere else.
And I think not clear. I'm looking and I'm seeing all the line items and the pension and faculty and operations and wherever it is, I would love somebody to say it's there, and then kind of draw like a little Venn diagram or something and make it simple.
Like I need to see the check too. Like, oh, this is the money. Well, did you really spend it on us?
Yeah, and that's also why we're really asking for a lot of transparency, because especially under the Rocha administration, that was not the word of the day. Transparency was not there. And it was so frustrating asking for, there was another movement that I was working on, and we were asking for things on paper. What are you spending this on? And they just, it wasn't really getting to us. But yeah, that's definitely what we're asking for in whatever board of trustee group we get next.
And it's not asking a lot to just say, to say, okay, it's an institution, it's a public institution. Help me help myself, help me advocate for myself, because, if I don't know in what line item this funding's rolling up into, how can I go and affect change and affect policy? And so
definitely.
I really applaud you guys for being on top of that and making sure that you're engaging candidates to be no, we're looking into these things, you have to be accountable.
Yeah, that's why we're documenting these things, especially it's also for the aftermath. Sorry, Kira.
Can you tell us how much money is in the budget reserves, and would you use this money to support Black students? If you were to use this money for Black students, how so?
I do not know how much money is in the budget reserves. If I had to take from what I've discerned from the budget, it looks around about $2 million from what I could tell. And I would definitely be looking to earmark some of that money. My only hesitation at this time with saying that, so yes, I would be looking to earmark some of this money for Black Student Union. And I feel remiss to say that because of the upcoming accreditation that the institution is going to have to go through, and there being a budget deficit, and there being a lack of reserve funds, I feel the need to just be very kind of transparent and say, yes, I would earmark some of that money, but also like, is it enough money, and what's the bigger kind of motive behind like getting it to where it needs to be, and is it even able to be earmarked? Is it actually not even enough money to actually get us back on track and sustain accreditation?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that answer. So, for the next one, I'm going to bring up a slide, and you were able to see our demands beforehand, but again, I got a slide.
Okay.
So wait, let me share this. Here's a slide. Oh no. Slide. Okay, here we go. Black Student Union demands for CCSF. And we ask that CCSF understands our goals are to have a Black space and presence that connects all of the resource centers, AFAM Studies Department, and Black Student Union, networking with high schools so we can promote ourselves to potential CCSF students. This encourages longevity and circulation of students into the BSU so we can continue its legacy. Making sure that Black programs and resources are given the proper visibility by CCSF. Advocating for adequate funding for the African American Resource Center and a AFAM Studies Associates of Arts degree that can be used for transferring, which we currently do not have. So, what is your strategy in regards to the Black Student Union demands?
I feel that it's not even a demand, it's just a reasonable, call it request, that just has to be done because the state mandated bill or legislation that says that that any student finishing in the UC Cal State system has to take African American studies and have that as a part of their curriculum. It just goes hand in hand. So now it's just a matter of how we get the funds to this program to make sure that we are in compliance with state legislation that's saying that, hey, like everyone who's finishing their degree programs has to take these courses. So this just goes hand in hand for me. So it's just a matter of hey, we have to be in compliance. Where do we have to move around, reallocate funding to be in compliance, to make sure that we're
Oh, sorry, I think I missed that last part.
Kier, you're
you're
muted.
Yeah, I'm talking. What makes you different in this race?
What makes me different? A couple things. I would say that I feel that I'm a candidate really thinking about the future in a couple different ways. I'm thinking about the future in relation to the climate crisis. We all Bay Area residents, we see that, we can't go outside. So that's not okay. That's not okay. That we have wildfires starting earlier and earlier. That we have, families who live in the Southeast affected by hurricanes and floods. It's all interconnected. So my candidacy is really building on Proposition A, the $845 million bond measure that's going to ensure that we build a campus for the future. And two, my lived experience. My lived experience as a first-generation college student who still is paying student loan debt, and whose that debt impacts my ability to go out and do other things in the world, volunteer, just simple things. So having that lived experience where I'm like, I don't want to see other students have to take on massive amounts of debt to get an education. And then also, when you do take on that debt, or when folks do, like, what's at the end of it? What are the workforce development opportunities that legislatures and leaders are thinking about and for their education? So just thinking about this multifaceted approach, that it's just not, solving the budget crisis or it's not just one thing. It's about, someone's experience to say, hey, I've lived through this and I know that it can be done differently. I know it can be done better. And I know that we can't just be thinking about today, we have to think about tomorrow.
Okay. To go really quickly off base about your Green Deal, what are your ideas to help the school and improve sustainability?
Yes. So carbon neutrality is one. So getting a plan together, getting that approved, and building, using the $845 million bond measure to make sure that we're building to that carbon neutrality plan, that any new buildings that are going to be improved, or any new buildings that are going to be built, or any existing buildings that are going to be improved, are meeting zero carbon emission standards. That in turn decreases operating cost. The ability to stop paying so much in energy bills will also help with the budget deficit. And then as it relates to jobs, so figuring out how we start to utilize some of the state funding that's being put out for infrastructure, for roads, for bridges, for all these different types of jobs that are going to need people to fill them. So making sure that, CCSF is setting itself up, looking ahead to say, hey, the state has created funding for this type of road improvement or infrastructure improvement. Are we training people to get into those jobs? Are we partnering with local companies to create vocational opportunities? So that's kind of how I'm thinking about it.
That's really interesting.
Are you thinking like solar? Say that again, Trillia.
Oh, I said that. I think that's really interesting. I'm glad you asked that here.
Yeah. Sorry. And then, like, are you thinking like solar or electricity or like wind power? What are you in your mind? What would be perfect?
In my mind, all of the above. But really, in terms of the Green New Deal, is partnering with companies that are going to be doing that kind of work. So it's not so much like solar, wind, or let's say geothermal. It's like what local companies are doing wind power, what local companies are doing solar power. How does CCSF set itself up to offer a course program or instruction to get people trained in those kinds of roles? And then how do we create that partnership and that open door agreement, saying, hey, we're creating training programs, and on the other side of that training program, there's a job. Mm-hmm. So that's.
I like that.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, Kier, because that was an interesting thing that I saw on your campaign page, Geramye. Like, I don't think I've seen anybody really, or any of the other candidates really, talking about the Green New Deal. And I hadn't really thought of it in that kind of intersection. So that was really interesting. So thank you for that answer. So for our last question, how are you committed to helping the African American Studies Department? Oh, is my thing.
How am I committed to help with students like yourselves. Again, showing up, not waiting for there to be a problem or issue for you guys to come at the board and, you know, be like, I need an answer, I need transparency, I need accountability. Coming to your meetings, engaging with students like yourselves, the leaders of organizations that are saying, hey, we're here, see us. What does that look like? And just transparency. So if there are, you know, we can't, I as a leader would be, I think the way I'm trying to say this is that there are going to be tough times ahead. And there's budget deficits from both the city, local level, from the institution level. So there's going to be hard decisions that are going to have to be made, but it's not making those decisions in a vacuum, not making those decisions without student and faculty input, without community, even the greater community input. And that's what's going to make me different, is because I'm not going to just sit on a board and say, well, we have to do it, so do it. I'm going to talk to you guys, and I'm going to fight for, you know, students and say, hey, you know, I'm not okay with closing this campus, or I'm not okay with not funding this degree program. Like, you know, like what are, you know, and if those decisions have to be made, how do we come to the table and say, okay, if we're gonna not fund a degree program, like what's the kind of sunset to like make sure that everybody in that degree program gets the course and the education that they started. So that's how I'm saying, is that just coming to students and saying, you know, not waiting for you to come to me.
Right? Yeah, I think, yeah, it does not exist in a vacuum. We are a community college, and we should act as a community and make sure that we're getting input from everybody. Like, thank you. So that is the end of our questions. So first of all, thank you for meeting with us. We really value the time that you put in, but if there's anything else you'd like to say, we're well within time, so you don't need to worry about any of that. Or if there's anything you want to add, Kiera.
No, we're good. Thank you, Jeremy.
Okay. Was there anything you'd like to add in conclusion?
I just want to say thank you to you guys, because I wish that I would have been doing the kind of engagement that you guys were doing when I was a student. And so I'm continuously learning from students like you who are just really advocating for themselves and making their voices heard. And yeah, thank you for doing this. And I really look forward to engaging with you guys no matter how things turn out.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Interested in talking to you in the BSU meetings. Sorry, Karen.
Yeah. And we also wanted to do these meetings because since we are in a pandemic and we have to be at home, we thought this would be an easier way for people to see the candidates who will be affecting our school directly. So we were like, well, we can't meet them at the school. They can't have any events. We can't talk to them at a Q&A or anything like that. We still need to talk to them. We still need to vote anyway. And we still need to get this outreach to everyone else who isn't as involved as us. So people out. That's why we're here.
Thank you for doing that, because yeah. Thank you. I feel it.
Good. Thank you, Jeremy. Have a nice one.
You guys too.
All right. Thank you. Bye.